My beloved child, stay with me for a moment, because this message is not really about how you look, it is about what someone has been saying about you when you are not around. There is a person who has been quietly creating an image of you in other people's minds, and the strange part is that your soulmate may already know the truth. They have noticed something that others completely missed. Someone may have described your appearance in a way that was meant to make people judge you before they ever understood you, but your soulmate did not accept that story so easily. They looked beyond the surface. They remembered your expressions, your presence, the way you carry yourself, and the little things that make you unmistakably you. And now, something is beginning to change. As this unfolds, clarity will come, because the real revelation is not simply what someone said about your body or appearance. The real revelation is why they felt the need to say it at all. Stay with me for a moment, because there is an emotional reason behind this that may completely change how you see the situation. Here is where the story becomes unexpected. Someone may have been comparing you to an image that does not represent who you truly are, almost as if they wanted others to see only one version of you. But your soulmate noticed the difference between gossip and reality. They may have heard a description of you and immediately felt that something was wrong with it. Instead of joining the conversation, they became quieter. They started observing. They remembered moments with you that other people knew nothing about. And that is when they realized something powerful. People can describe your appearance, but they cannot describe your entire presence. They cannot explain the feeling someone gets when you walk into a room, the comfort in your voice, the expression on your face when you genuinely care, or the strength you carry after everything you have experienced. Someone may be talking about how you look, but your soulmate may be thinking about who you are. That difference matters. Something huge is waiting for you, because the person trying to shape everyone's opinion may eventually realize that their words did not have the effect they expected. But there is another layer you need to hear. This may resonate as we continue, because sometimes the person who talks the most about someone's appearance is actually revealing more about themselves than about the person they are describing. Perhaps they noticed that you were becoming more confident. Perhaps they sensed that someone was beginning to appreciate you deeply. Perhaps they simply could not understand why your soulmate sees something in you that they failed to notice. And instead of asking questions, they created a story. Yet your soulmate may have quietly rejected that story without even announcing it. They may have thought, "That is not the person I know." Imagine the emotional weight of that moment, the realization that someone is discussing you, while the one person whose opinion matters most is refusing to let those words change what they feel. This is why the title is deeper than it appears. The conversation may have started with your appearance, but it is heading towards something much more personal: loyalty, recognition, and the moment your soulmate decides that they will no longer allow someone else's description of you to define you. And now, my beloved child, pay attention to what comes next, because the biggest part may not be what was said, it may be what your soulmate did after hearing it. They could have stayed silent for a reason. They could have been processing everything privately, trying to understand why someone would speak about you that way. Maybe they did not want to create unnecessary conflict. Maybe they wanted to hear the full story before responding. But silence does not always mean agreement. Sometimes silence means someone is preparing to reveal exactly where they stand. Your soulmate may be reaching a point where they no longer care about the version of you that other people have invented. They care about the person they have personally seen. And when that truth finally comes forward, the conversation changes completely. The person who thought they were controlling the narrative may discover that your soulmate already knows who you are, and no description, comparison, or outside opinion can erase that recognition. Stay with me, because this story is only beginning, and the next realization is where everything becomes much more personal. There is one detail your soulmate may have noticed that nobody else could explain. They may have heard the words, the comparisons, and the little comments about your appearance, but instead of focusing on those words, they remembered how you made them feel. That is the part people often underestimate. Someone can tell 100 stories about your appearance, but one genuine moment can completely destroy a false impression. Your soulmate may have remembered the way you smiled when you were comfortable, the way your energy changed when you felt understood, or the way you carried yourself when you thought nobody was watching. And suddenly, the description someone gave them no longer made sense. Stay with me for a moment, because this is where the hidden meaning begins to surface. The person talking about you may have wanted everyone to see you through their eyes, but your soulmate has their own experience of you, and that experience is much stronger than someone else's opinion. What makes this even more surprising is that your soulmate may have realized that the conversation was never really about your body at all. It was about perception. Someone may have been trying to make you seem less attractive, less confident, or less worthy of attention, but your soulmate could have recognized the intention behind those words. They may have quietly wondered, why are they so concerned about how this person looks? That question can change everything. Because when someone repeatedly talks about another person's appearance, people eventually start noticing the pattern. Your soulmate may have noticed it too. They may have begun connecting moments that once seemed unrelated, and suddenly a bigger picture appeared. Perhaps that is why they became distant from certain conversations. Perhaps that is why they stopped reacting to certain comments. They were not ignoring you. They were observing the truth. As this unfolds, clarity will come, and you may realize that the person who tried to influence the way others saw you may have accidentally shown your soulmate exactly why you deserve to be understood rather than judged. Now listen carefully, because this is the moment where your story takes an emotional turn. Your soulmate may have discovered that the version of you being discussed was not the version they knew. And that realization can create a powerful inner decision. I will trust what I have personally seen. That decision may not have been announced publicly. It may have happened quietly, inside their own heart. But once someone reaches that point, outside opinions lose their power. Your soulmate may begin remembering every genuine interaction, every small detail, every moment when you showed kindness without expecting recognition. They may realize that while someone else was describing your appearance, they were getting to know your character. And that difference can become impossible to ignore. Something huge is waiting for you, because the next step may involve your soulmate finally making it clear that they will not allow somebody else's words to define the person they care about. This may resonate as we continue, especially if you have ever felt misunderstood while someone else seemed determined to speak for you. If this message is connecting with you, share it with someone who needs the reminder that their worth cannot be reduced to somebody else's description. And if you want to stay connected to messages like this, subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. But now, come back to the story, because there is one final piece that makes this situation so powerful. The person who has been talking may eventually realize that your soulmate knows more than they expected. They may discover that the person they were trying to influence has already formed their own opinion of you, and it is based on reality, not rumors. That is when the entire atmosphere can change. The conversation that was supposed to make you look different may instead make your soulmate look at you with even greater understanding. They may recognize that you have been carrying yourself through life without needing everyone to approve of you. And perhaps that is the real revelation. Someone tried to define how you should be seen, but your soulmate chose to see you for themselves. Stay with me, because the next part goes deeper into the exact realization that may have caused their feelings to shift, and why what was said about you could ultimately bring the two of you closer rather than push you apart. Something changed the moment your soulmate realized that the story being told about you did not match the person they had personally experienced. At first, they may have listened without saying much, but inside, a completely different conversation was taking place. They were comparing every word they heard with every memory they had of you. And the more they thought about it, the less convincing the description became. They may have remembered your confidence on one day and your vulnerability on another. They may have remembered the way you looked when you were laughing, thinking, concentrating, or simply being yourself. Those ordinary moments suddenly became more meaningful than the dramatic version someone else had presented. Stay with me for a moment, because this is where the hidden truth becomes clearer. Your soulmate may not be impressed by the image other people try to create. They are paying attention to the real person behind it. And when someone truly knows you, a few careless words about your appearance cannot erase everything they have already discovered about you. Then came the realization that may have surprised them the most. Why was this person so determined to talk about you? Why were they giving so much attention to something that should have been personal? That question may have caused your soulmate to look at the entire situation differently. Instead of wondering whether the comments were true, they may have started wondering what motivated them. And that is a powerful shift. Because once you stop accepting someone's words at face value and start examining the reason behind them, the entire story can change. Your soulmate may have sensed that the conversation was designed to create doubt, to make people look at you through a narrow lens instead of seeing your complete personality. But the attempt may have produced the opposite result. Your soulmate became more curious about you. They wanted to understand you rather than judge you. They began noticing details they had previously overlooked, and those details may have made them appreciate you even more. As this unfolds, clarity will come, because sometimes the very conversation meant to weaken someone's image ends up revealing how deeply that person has already been noticed. There is also something emotional happening beneath the surface. Your soulmate may realize that you probably have no idea how often people notice you. You may simply be living your life, trying to become a better version of yourself, while someone else is busy creating opinions around you. And your soulmate may feel a strange mixture of admiration and sadness when they understand that. They may think about all the times you questioned yourself, all the moments when you wondered whether you were enough, and all the times you compared yourself to impossible standards. Then they may realize that the person being discussed never needed to become somebody else. You were already someone worth knowing. This may resonate as we continue, especially if you have ever looked at yourself through someone else's criticism instead of through your own truth. The real revelation is not that your soulmate thinks you look a certain way. It is that they may have reached a point where your appearance is no longer the measure of what they value. They see the complete picture, the personality, the presence, the heart, the resilience, and the little qualities that cannot be captured by a simple description. And now comes the part you were not expecting. Your soulmate may eventually hear the same person speak about you again, but this time, something inside them could be completely different. Instead of quietly accepting the conversation, they may ask a simple question that changes the entire direction of it. Do you actually know them? That question sounds ordinary, but its meaning is powerful. Because suddenly, the person speaking about you has to explain where their certainty comes from. Your soulmate may no longer be interested in opinions without understanding. They may want facts, genuine experiences, and reality. And if the other person cannot provide them, their words begin losing their influence. Something huge is waiting for you, because this may be the moment your soulmate understands that protecting your image is not about arguing with everyone. It is about refusing to let someone else's perception become your identity. The person who truly knows you does not need a perfect description. They simply know what they have seen, what they have felt, and what they have come to believe about you. And that realization may be quietly bringing your soulmate closer to a decision they have not yet spoken aloud. The conversation may have ended, but your soulmate's thoughts did not. Long after everyone else moved on, they could still be thinking about the way you had been described and wondering why those words bothered them so much. Then something clicked. Maybe they realized that they had been protecting an image of you in their heart without even knowing it. They knew your expressions, your energy, your habits, your little imperfections, and the moments when you were completely yourself. So when somebody reduced you to a few careless words about your appearance, it felt completely incomplete. Stay with me for a moment, because this is the part where the story becomes less about what someone said and more about what your soulmate finally understood. They may have realized that the person they care about cannot be measured by a description, a comparison, or somebody else's standard. They may have realized that they are attracted to the entire presence of you. The way you exist, the way you communicate, and the feeling that remains after you leave the room. That realization can be much more powerful than any compliment. And then another thought may have appeared, perhaps you never knew how deeply they had been noticing you. Perhaps they remembered details you assumed nobody cared about. The way your face changed when you were genuinely happy. The way you became quiet when something mattered deeply. The way you tried to stay strong even when you were uncertain. Those details may have become part of the reason your soulmate sees you differently. Someone can tell them what you supposedly look like, but your soulmate remembers what you actually feel like to be around. That is a completely different kind of knowledge. As this unfolds, clarity will come, because the person who tried to define you may have unknowingly exposed the difference between superficial judgment and genuine connection. Your soulmate may now understand that people can look at the same person and see completely different things. One person sees a list of features. Another sees memories, emotions, comfort, familiarity, and a connection that cannot be explained in a single sentence. And perhaps that is why your soulmate did not let those comments change their perception of you. If this message is resonating with you, share it with someone who needs to remember that outside opinions do not get to define their identity. And if you want more messages built around emotional signs, unexpected realizations, and powerful relationship stories, subscribe and stay connected. But do not scroll away yet, because the final realization is the one that changes the meaning of everything that came before it. Your soulmate may have understood something that the other person completely missed. Sometimes people criticize what they do not understand. Sometimes they focus on appearance because they cannot see the deeper qualities that make someone memorable. And sometimes, the person being discussed has no idea that someone is quietly admiring the very things others are trying to overlook. Your soulmate may have reached that point. Instead of asking whether you fit somebody else's idea of beauty, they may be asking a much more meaningful question: why does this person make me feel something nobody else does? That question cannot be answered by gossip. It can only be answered through genuine experience. Now listen carefully, because this is where the entire message comes together. The person who was telling everyone how you supposedly looked may have thought they were controlling your image, but your soulmate may have walked away with a completely different conclusion. They may have realized that you are far more complex than anyone's description. They may have recognized that your presence cannot be copied, your personality cannot be summarized, and your value cannot be determined by comparison. And perhaps the biggest surprise is that the conversation itself became a reminder of why they were drawn to you in the first place. Something huge is waiting for you, not necessarily a dramatic announcement, but a shift in understanding. Your soulmate may be becoming less interested in what everyone else says and more interested in what they personally know to be true. So if you have been wondering whether someone else's words could change the way they see you, remember this. The person who truly knows you does not need someone else to explain you. They already have their own memories, their own perspective, and their own reason for seeing you differently. And when that truth finally becomes impossible for them to ignore, the next chapter may begin with a conversation you never expected.